Hi, folks. In this episode of Wardley Mapping Spotlight, I have a pleasure to host Julius Gamanyi. Julius works for Accenture as a technology architect, but sometimes wears a hat of integration architect, develops software, and is also a security champion. Right now, Julius works in payments, but before that, he worked in services, retail, and transportation. He's a big fan of worldly mapping and good books and everything which those things bring. In this interview, we will talk about what value Julius gets from worldly mapping, and Julius will reveal what is the secret of getting promoted inside a consulting firm. I found this very revealing. Enjoy. Hello, Julius. It's a real pleasure to have you here. Could you tell us a couple of words how your journey with worldly mapping started?
Yeah, for me it was accident or coincidence. So the background was I was on a project where we wanted to do prototype or a proof of concept to migrate from on-premise monolithic application to the cloud, and our cloud was Cloud Foundry. So most of the assumptions I was used to, weren't holding anymore. Things like I'm going to write logs to the file system. Yeah, but the file system can disappear, or the computer system can also disappear. So then all these assumptions that I had no longer hold in this new world. So I was kind of confused and frustrated and thinking, what is going on? Then I think it was through one of Adrian Cockfrot's talks. I think he mentioned Wardley mapping and also the assumptions that were valid in the data center age that don't hold anymore in the cloud era. So I thought, okay, Wardley mapping, that sticks. Let me just, I'll look at it later. Then I read one time that there was a CEO who was giving a presentation and he just quit. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. So I went to look it up, and it was Simon giving his presentation on at OSCON. So, so I came for the gossip, and then I stayed for mapping. So that's it.
Awesome story. Awesome story. That actually makes me. I feel like I should play a role of a historian and actually dig out those presentations and make sure they are linked later in the material. Um,
Yeah. So
so
that
you
was the start, and then I came across that PDF. The future is predictable, and I love that one because it all the concepts were like in tiny bits, and then it builds up slowly by slowly, and then at the end it's like, oh, here are the scenarios, and so, oh, it's amazing. So that
yeah.
was one of the highlights. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. So you've been using worldly mapping for a really long time. I mean, in terms of comparing to how old are worldly maps, it's like more than a half of the age, right? Could could you tell us what value are you getting out of worldly mapping that you are still using them?
Yeah. So I would say around four types. One was to understand things better, and I just don't mean okay systems, yeah, but also things regardless of scale. So it could be a team, an organization, or an industry, and then to see these kind of trends without getting lost into all the details. So, so that was one thing, just to understand. And then the other one was when things change, not to feel so lost and so frustrated, uh, and then to be able to explain why things are changing or why they might change in a certain direction. That also helped because my work is, on the one hand, software development, on the other hand, doing application architecture. And you have to look ahead at least to a certain extent and then build the architecture to support what's coming in the future. So one, yeah, colleague usually reminds us clients don't buy architectures, they buy business capabilities, they buy value, and the architecture is there to support that or to enable them to do that. So that was another reason. Um, And then the other one is, of course, to be flexible. So I work at Accenture. So we work on projects, clients. We move around a lot on different projects and clients. And so, how would you say, the stages of evolution of each project is different. So what I used to do before, when I was younger, is come from project A to project B and say, yeah, project A was a success. What we did there, we have to do it here. And then sometimes it works, sometimes it's just a disaster. It's like, well, of course it doesn't work. How do you mean you were successful in that other project? As in, what are you talking about? And so in this zone of bewilderment, so how to navigate that? That's the value of it that I found so far.
That sounds really nice, and I think I could share plenty of things that you have said, because for me, there's always the aspect of discovery and learning how the situation looks like, and the aspect of trying to stay flexible. And this one is really interesting because if you think about staying flexible, it actually boils down to a small set of principles to the doctrine, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Those are like the heuristics that you need to follow.
Yeah.
Could you share a map that you have created and talk us through it?
Yes. So this one is based on a book. So like I said, I'm at Accenture. We're in professional services. I don't talk for Accenture. Disclaimer out of the way. But it is an industry that I'm interested in. So I don't know if that's big enough or if I need to zoom in.
No, it's fine. It's readable.
Okay. So, and then this one is based on David Meister's book called Managing the Professional Services Firm. It came out in '93. So that's like, I don't know, 28 years ago or so. But the structure is the same regardless of what kind of professional services company you're in. I know Simon doesn't like consultants, but as long as we don't enslave people, we should be okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones he's fighting against. So there were some initiatives internally in the company that I wanted to participate in, but I had no idea. There's just, okay, the company is big, initiatives are big, and where can I focus my time and energy? So based on this book, okay, the reason I share from books is we have to keep the things that are confidential have to be kept confidential, things that are, so this gives me a way out, so pulling from books. So as long as it's somewhat similar, then we can talk about these kinds of things.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So Meister had, so what's the purpose of this organization? It's to serve clients, of course, have some success. And then there's a very primitive numbers and formulas, but it kind of gives the same impression. And then you have the people that work for you. They also need to be satisfied. So these three things they feed into this purpose. And then for success, there is the margins, which profit and fees. Then productivity, which is defined in a different way to how we normally think about productivity. And then, so that's on the success. And then it's also needs to be on the client side. And that one depends on the kind of project it is and how it's being managed. And David Meister in his book had three kinds of projects, like the ones that are very risky have to be managed in a different way. The ones that are gray-haired projects, he called them, have to be managed in a different way. So that was like mini evolution stages, so to speak. And then on the employee side, you have, of course, one of the selling parts of professional services is it's a career, not a job. So most of the employees are very, hardworking, high performers, always, want to climb that career ladder as fast as possible. And then the other thing the employee needs is to stay motivated. And then for the company, having motivated people is good. They need to screen to get the best people, and they need to be able to retain the staff that they have. And that depends on a lot of it on promotions. And that depends on, okay, what's the probability of being promoted? Is the company growing? I mean, if it's not growing, then you can just forget about promotions. And then how much time have you spent on this career level? So it's, yeah, so you have to be performing at the next level to be promoted to the next level. So that is all on the employee side. And for the motivation, there is, anyway, I won't go through all the components, but the interesting part for me was this one. This is the ratio of seniors to juniors that you have on a project. So the whole, the staffing pyramid that you have on these kinds of projects. And that one.
May I interrupt you here? Why
Sure.
is this leverage important? Why this ratio of seniors to juniors is important?
So that one, because it affects all of these components that we talked about here. So it's the one component that ties everything together here. So if you mess this up, then it's going to affect your margins and productivity. And leverage is, so if I have someone who's very senior, they're going to be charging a lot for their time. And if they're doing something a junior person can do, why are they doing that stuff? As in, they should be doing, how you call it?
High value stuff.
Exactly, high value stuff. So you have like, I don't know, some managing director or somewhere looking at log files to fix some issues. Like, no, as in, please don't.
Okay, I get it. I get this part.
Yeah, so that affects these components. And then it affects the employees, their excitement and satisfaction. So if I'm a junior person, I'd like to do more senior kind of work to build myself up. And then for the more senior one, they want to also not do the like junior kind of work, but to focus on the high value type of work. So, so that's this part here. And then, so I found that fascinating.
It is.
And the kind of components it depends on, like, can you delegate successfully? And as you drill down, what I find is, especially this one, challenge how your time is used. So this one always makes me uncomfortable. Determine work that your level needs to do, and then determine what you can pass on to juniors, and then coach them and build them up so that they can do what you do, and you get to do
More stuff. Yeah.
More stuff. Yeah, but that's because if you're on a project, so to speak, you're comfortable, you're a success doing the normal things. That is usually uncomfortable to think about lots of times. It's like, I just want to forget about it, but you can't. Yeah, so this was the part I wanted to focus on. I mean, I never got to do the stuff, but, but it was enlightening to see that just one small part brings everything together. And if you do everything well, if you take care of the small part, it will take care of the rest. So yeah, so that's the map.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. If you were to give one piece of advice to people who are looking at Wardley mapping or are just entering this world, what would it be?
Good question. One would be to, practice drawing this stuff. That's one example. Then you don't even have to like draw an industry. That's even complicated. Okay, if you know the industry, then you've built up this kind of intuition. You kind of know how things work. Then, but sometimes to sit down and to actually make what you know explicit is hard. So what I used to do was to even just get some tweets and then just draw a map of those. For me, what I found is the most interesting part is the topic you're mapping should be interesting to you. So this I can sustain. I mean, I'm still writing those blog posts on IBM and gas now. I mean, there are so many loops around the strategy cycle. That's fascinating for me. Someone else, that's probably so boring that they just want to stay away. And that's fine. If you have something you're interested in that you can map as a way to practice, and then that you can use. So I don't map everything. I map the ones that either I want to understand more deeply or that I actually want to do something about. And it's not everything that needs to be mapped.
Awesome. Thank you for this. And I mean, it was a real pleasure to have you here. The map is great. And thank you. I mean, thank you again.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was my pleasure.